Hey everybody, welcome to the third video. If you haven't seen the first and second one, then you don't know how to do some of the things that we're going to do in here for the procedural workflow. So jump on over, check them out, smash that subscribe, smash that like, and let's get started. So I'm going to take up the orthographic view, which is going to be 1 and then 3. And we'll switch to the perspective to do mesh investigations. Now I've provided you with the reference image. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop mine in. G and Z to kind of bring it up to the line here. In fact, let's just scale that up a good bit. G and Z. I want to come down to the properties here for this image. And I could turn on opacity, put it to 0.3. Now, from the perspective, if it bothers you, you could turn that off so when you hit 1, it only shows. But I'm going to leave mine on for now. Now, what I'm going to want to do is hit Shift D and then rotate this at -90. Alright, so that didn't work. Let's try that again. RZ -90, enter. Boom. So if I hit 1, I'm going to have this image lined up. It does not have to be perfect. I'm going to have this image lined up G and Y, kind of like that. Now, with all that being said, I do want to take this image and hit G and X and kind of move it out a little bit. You see, we can still see it's lined up. And then I'll take this one and G and Y and kind of move it out as well. So as we're modeling, let me grab this and move it a touch more, something like that. So as we're modeling, when we go to put in something like a cube, you don't have to have wireframe on because the opacity of the image, you can see straight through the image and see to your mesh. Okay, so jump into edit mode. It should all be selected. I'm going to go to vertex select, A for all, vertex select, and I want to hit M and merge all these at the center. So if I go to object mode, I've just got this little tiny vert floating around. I'm going to right click so he snaps back in place. And I'm going to use him to model this thing out. So Control Shift X, and we can hit C to create and spacebar to go to line. Now we can start creating and just start anywhere. And what I'm going to do is just kind of trace this thing out. You don't have to be amazingly artistic, but on some of these curves, make a little bit of extra geometry. And that's pretty easily done by just clicking a few extra times, you know. And so I think we got something like this. That looks good. I like it. Like it. Like it. And I'll just go ahead and complete my revolution here, something like that. Now right here, I'm not going to click anything else. I'm just going to hit X and then spacebar. Okay, and what that's going to do is it's going to create the face in that shape. Now we can extrude that out now, or we can do it later. It really doesn't even matter. So I want to take up the next one here, and let's see, we still have our little vert guy down here, so we can just keep selecting him, and we can just call this our main man, because he's our main man right now, and we're going to hit Control Shift X on him, press C, spacebar, we're on line, and now we can build the next piece. Alright, and it's kind of repetitive, but you know, you'll get used to doing it, and so you'll need to have a little bit of imagination, so you just kind of think through it. You know, this definitely goes down into the mesh just a little bit. Like I said, none of this has to be exact to the mesh unless you want to take the time. I'm just going to speed up my workflow, hit X spacebar, and now I'm going to grab the main man down here, and I will go ahead and start drawing in again. All right, so I've got the leg blocked out, but I do have this gap right here, so I want to fix that. I'll hit / with this piece selected. Now you can just draw in a cylinder, something like that, and then we can bring the radius up just a touch. And if you need to move it, even though it looks pretty good, you could turn on snapping, go to face project, and then just tap G with that object selected, and then you can kind of center it how you want. And now I'll scale that on the Z just a little bit, and let's put it back on there. Apply the scale. Now I'm going to shift select both of these, come back out, and now I've got this little joint piece right here. I'm going to shade it smooth, come over to the vertex area, and auto smooth that. Now if we get too far along, I'm actually going to hit A for all. I'm going to grab all these, press M, create a new collection, and just call this one legs, and hit enter. So that way I can kind of separate these from anything else, like my reference images, which for some reason are apparently not in a folder. So I will shift select these, M, and we'll put these in reference. Somehow they got out of there. Now I can grab this and hit H to hide, and if I had a bunch of stuff in the scene, I could just go to legs, right click, and then select object, and it will select all of them. And then I can shift right click to create an active object, which is going to help us in just a second. So now let's go ahead and add a bevel modifier to this piece. And I don't see it actually doing anything, so let's go ahead and Control A and apply the scale. And I'm going to jump into edit mode, hit A for all, and Shift N and recalculate those normals. And it looks like just don't have this one shaded smooth, so I'll go ahead and shade it smooth and make sure it's auto smooth. And now on this, we can bring the bevel into something that doesn't create any shading errors. And one thing you want to do, like we did in the previous videos, is clean up the corners. So we can go from miter outer, from sharp to arc, and it'll clean up a lot of that shading. And I turn clamp overlap off, so we can go to shading and click to harden the normals as well, and that should give us a pretty nice looking shape. We do have a couple of spots here that look kind of suspect. All right, so I fixed the problem that was going on with the mesh, and I've just never ever had this happen before, but I kind of hope I did it to the next one, because I'm going to show you how I fixed it. So I'm going to bring this forward and apply a bevel modifier, bring up the segments to something nice and even, like 4. Always go in and turn off the clamp overlap so you can kind of see how it's working. And it looks like I may have done the same thing here. So what I'm going to do is just remove the bevel, and it's going to end up with some crazy shading errors because I had snap on, and it was snapping as I was extruding, which created a bunch of little micro faces. So I'm just going to hit Q, and I'm going to separate that by selection, and I can come in here and now delete that. I just want to investigate this and see how it looks. If it disappears, then it's not looking terrible, so that's good. And go back in. I want to extrude that back out. I can bring back the other mesh and kind of reline that up so I'm not doing like double work. Let's scale that a touch, see how it looks. It's pretty nice. And by the way, when this was originally out here, see, when we scale that in, you get all this very nice definition. And so I'll bring that back out, go through the process, shade it smooth, auto smooth. I'll apply the scale, come over here, add the bevel, add 4 segments, turn off clamp overlap, and now we should be able to get a really nice bevel. All right, so that's looking a lot better. So that's what I did. I'm gonna go through and clean up the rest, and I'll see you guys right after I'm done. All right, so once you've got all that worked out, hopefully nobody had to go back and do that, you can just hit A for all, and that'll grab the pieces I haven't beveled yet, and then select the one with the correct bevel. And now you can hit Control C and copy those modifiers like we learned in the previous tutorials. And what that'll do is it'll match up all of the bevels. So if I go through here, this one's set to 0.002, 002, 002 with 3 segments. And we could bring those up to 4. And then A for all, Control C, copy modifiers, and change them all at the same time. And you can make adjustments that way and save a ton of time. Alright, so everything kind of ended up here in the center. So if I press the 1 key, it's the front facing orthographic, it's going to be off. So just right click, select objects, G and X to move this over, and we can start kind of sizing these pieces up, kind of like before, and just kind of move them around. Now it seems to be better to just hide that for now, and I want to kind of move in on that, and G and X, kind of move that piece over. Now these are stacked, as you can see. They're kind of offset, so we're going to do that ever so slightly. So what I'm going to do is just kind of grab these right here, and we can bring them, offset them to the edges a little bit. So alright, that looks pretty good for now. So cursor to the world origin, and let's go ahead and Shift A and bring in a cylinder. And this came back in, so I'm going to reset the value. It came back in at the previous setting. So rotate this on Y, 90, number pad, enter. And I want to scale this down, G and Z, and kind of bring it up. Want it to be relatively close to the size, and then just scale it till it's about there. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to go ahead, do the normal process. I'm going to shade it smooth, auto smooth, and then I can shift right click here, Control C, and just go ahead and copy those modifiers. So this will go ahead and have the bevel, and you could change that later if you want, but if you decide 0.002, if you decide to actually join the mesh, you're going to want to make sure that the bevels are the same size. And now we can go ahead with that one piece, and I'll hide this, and we can just start throwing the mirror modifier on one of these. So let's grab one and throw the mirror on. Mirror can come to the top of the stack, and I will mirror on this object right here. And what you'll see is we've got some funky stuff going on, and that's because we rotated this without applying it. So Control A, I'll apply that rotation, and if I come back down here, it will be on the proper axis, which is the x-axis. So that's why it's always important to apply all the scale and rotation. And so now I can just select everything in these objects, right click here, and I actually want to deselect that one and then reselect here. Just double tap the right mouse and Control C, and now I copy these modifiers, and it will bring everything over and just knock out a ton of work for us. Alright, picking up where I left off, what we want to do now is cut the pins in. And we take the side view, Alt H, and I'll bring this back. So we got all these different booleans we need to cut in, and then we need some geometry in there. And we need to hide this and get it out of the way for a second. So we got a little bit of a problem that I created on purpose. So these are all at an angle, and so if I grab this and try to cut a boolean right now, I'm going to cut up at an angle, and it would be incredibly difficult to cut a perfect straight line across. And so if I go in and let's just say I hit wireframe mode so you can see what it looks like, you can technically cut it straight across, but it doesn't match the geometry. So if I hit Alt R to fix that rotation, it's still off. It's not going to look good, and it could cause you some problems later on. So the little trick I just showed you is the one we're going to use. Make sure those booleans aren't there, and just want to grab the leg set here. And if you got the center selected, you can double right click on that. Just get everything selected and hit Alt R, and you will instantly correct that rotation. I'll jump into wireframe so I can select all of this, and I just want to hit G and X, kind of move this over to the side and go back to solid view. And once again, if you don't understand Z swiping, real quick, I can swipe into render view, and I can just tap and go into material preview, tap Z, and then just move your mouse over. It'll automatically select it, or you can do it slowly. You can hold down and go in those different modes, just so kind of don't lose anybody on that, because Z swiping is just, it's second nature, you know. So taking up the side view, Alt H, gonna bring everything back. Let's get cutting, and I'm gonna cut the bottom pieces and the foot first. So Shift Alt X, you know the drill. Space bar a couple times, pick up circle, hit X, get 60 subdivisions at least so it looks nice and smooth. Just click to place somewhere in the center. Doesn't have to be flawless. You can always hold Alt to move that around, and then just left click and place that. And if I want, see, I could actually, while I'm at it, while I'm right here, I'll go ahead and cut a little section out right here as well. It's not quite what I wanted. Let's try that again. There's going to hold the Alt key down and just kind of cut that out of the second mesh, something like that. That's fine. And I'm just double right clicking to get a hold of all this. Now I'm going to bring this circle back a little bit so it's not all, pardon my pun, meshed together. And so go ahead and get this one, bring it up a little bit, something like that. It could even be a little smaller. You know, it doesn't have to be uniform, and I don't want all my stuff uniform anyways. Some things yes, some things no. So it'll be aesthetically pleasing, accurate to design, and still not look necessarily very you know, all structured. Like, you want there to be some imperfections in your 3D models. All right, so that's starting to look kind of good. You get the general idea. I'm gonna fast forward through the next portion, so enjoy the music. All right, so let's finish this thing up, and I'm just going to go ahead and drop a cube in, G and Z to bring it up, kind of center it in here like that, and I'm going to bring I'll bring UV sphere, let's see, a cylinder, bring another cylinder in, and what is the count? 32, definitely want that to 64 so it looks really nice. I can go ahead and shade it smooth, auto smooth, G and Z. I gotta bring it up, and then rotate that on the X at 90. And I'll scale that down, put that about like right there, and then Shift D. I'm gonna bring another one down here and scale it in. And let's see how this is starting to shape up, pun intended. So definitely want to bring this forward a little bit on the Y axis. You can even scale it down on the Y a touch. It does need to be inside the mesh, and we don't want the edges to be too crazy here, so that way, and it looks like they had another one in there, it disappeared. Get rid of that. Now I'll Shift D this one, right click to let it go. I want to rotate this one on the X axis, 90, G and Z, kind of bring it up, scale it on the Z, and this one's going to definitely need to be in the right spot as well, because we're going to be cutting booleans into a circle. I'm going to hide these little pieces, take up the top view with number pad 7, and I want to line this up a little bit better inside so we don't cross over our boolean cuts and create some crazy geometry. So that one can actually go a touch further in and apply my scale and my rotation. All right, so that looks pretty good. Go ahead and grab these and transfer those modifiers. And I probably transferred the mirror. Don't need to do that. It's going to create problems. So be careful when you're doing it. And we're going to have some neat tricks to make all of this right here work. So we'll continue blocking this thing out and get done, but we'll do the detailing and all the cool stuff in the next video. So Alt H will bring back some stuff here. Now this one's going to be a little bit trickier, so I'm going to bring the cursor up here to this selected piece, and I just want to come into the mesh and drop in a curve. Well, not a curve, but a circle, and I'm going to rotate this on the Y at 90 degrees. Now this one, like I said, is going to be a little bit trickier. We may have to subdivide it. Let's see if I go into vertex select and grab everything and scale it on the Y, and then G, and just kind of bring it up. And I may bring the opacity down a little bit more on that, so it's a little more pronounced. Yeah, it looks pretty good. And so let's scale that on the Z just a touch. And I can't see it, so I need to bring that outside of the mesh. There we go. So this piece is a little bit trickier geometry, and if you get it, wrong, in essence, it's just gonna not look good. So I'm turning on proportional editing, G and Z, and I want to bring out the proportional editing a little bit. I'll bring that down, and then I'll move this piece out. And in fact, just to make sure this is perfect on both sides, we're going to symmetrize it. Right about like that. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm going to hit A for all, and I'm going to go ahead and symmetrize, and it should be on the Y negative to Y positive. Let's try Y positive and negative. All right, so that looks pretty good, and it did not create a line, but it created a little funky spot, as the symmetry always does. So G and Z, and just kind of bring that up, and you can even bring hit B for box select and grab those three, and then you can relax those vertices. That should help. B for box, left click, and I don't want those three. I want the 3, not the 4. And so let's zoom in. Hopefully you can see this. And then I'll relax that a little bit and relax it a little bit more. And G and Z perhaps to kind of bring it down. All right, I like that. So I'll hit A for all. And then I can hit F to fill that. I'll go over to face select. And now I can extrude that on the access point to something like that. I'm going to come out of there. Go ahead and shade it smooth. Auto smooth, and this one may get its own bevel. We're just going to see how it looks. Not bad. And bring that in a touch and maybe scale that on the Z, just as long as it's the same on both sides. There we go. That looks pretty nice. Now taking up the top view, you can see we're going to need to rotate it, but I want to put the origin to the geometry on this one so that we can just rotate it freely. And then G and, well, let's see, X. And move that over just a little bit. That looks good. So we're going to step this down a few times. And in order to do that, I'm going to hide this, go into face mode, and I will just hit I for inset. And a real good indication if you have bad geometry is some of this will already have shading errors and you won't be able to do a very good inset. All right, so let's extrude that just a little bit. Bring it down again and extrude it one more time. Now I'm going to jump back over, and you see we're kind of going through the mesh here, but don't worry, it's just a block out. And something like that. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to do a Boolean cut. So I'm going to jump back in. You know, when we do our detailing, I'm going to fix all that up so it looks good. I just want to extrude this one back a touch. So it's a little bit closer to the inside of the face here. And then you can step this down a couple more times. Maybe about like that. One more would probably be good enough. And actually, I'll just go ahead and add a little bit of geometry to this. A couple loop cuts here and there won't hurt anything. And now I should apply the scale. I'll apply the rotation. And then I want to get that bevel modifier on here. And it definitely needs to be mirrored. So Control C once you've got that selected and copy the modifier. And so now we've got that on both sides. Alt H, one for the front view. And I think we're good in this video. We will, because I kind of consider the arms to be details that are pretty important. So we're going to do that in the next video. So this one's not too long. I really appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. And we are going to do all kind of cool things with this when we are done, including the texturing. So like I said, thanks for watching, guys. And I hope you all stick it out. See you in the next one.